Hello and welcome to the TMZ podcast. I'm Charlie Cotton, and today on the podcast, I'm joined by TMZ lawyer Derek Kaufman, here to discuss the big events of the other day where Charlie Kirk got assassinated. Now, we have a main suspect. His name is Tyler Robinson. He's a 22-year-old from Utah, and he is currently in custody.
He's in custody. Now, he was the person of interest who the FBI released those photos of. There's been a manhunt since obviously this happened on the Utah Valley University campus. So people have been looking for him, and we saw what he was wearing. You saw the hat. But the way this came together is a little different. He wasn't not like Luigi Mangione, where they were hunting him and found him in a McDonald's. This came together, according to the authorities, because he confessed this. He lives in Utah and apparently, according to these reports, told his family, probably his father or another family member, that he had committed this crime. And then the response from the father was, you need to turn yourself in. This is very serious. Everyone is looking for you. He apparently did not want to do that. So the father then called a family friend who is maybe a youth pastor or someone like that, who then called the authorities. And they've now apprehended him. You can see the wording of this. He's in custody. We haven't heard arrest because he's a person of interest. This is still very early in this, but there's now a lot of evidence that has been collected, discovered. People are starting to talk about what made this person, Tyler Robinson, really tick and how he may have sort of committed this crime.
Yeah, there's loads of evidence, like you say. There's evidence just before and just after, like surveillance from people's houses, seeing, a guy that looks like Tyler limping towards, the soon-to-be assassination spot.
You can see this on our website. These look like they're like kind of ring cameras, maybe mounted higher than a door, though. Some of them are looking down. Other ones are sort of more at eye level. But he's walking with a pronounced limp. And some people believe that on the way to the shooting, some of these are from afterwards and some of them are from before. But on the way, people believe the limping is from carrying potentially the gun through his pants. And it sort of acts as a splint where you have to sort of hobble because you can't bend your knee as much. This is speculative, but this is what people are talking about. Others are him sort of coming back, and you can see him moving more briskly, maybe after the shooting.
The FBI released that video of him, allegedly Tyler, jumping off the roof. And now we have evidence about the rifle, because it was said in the presser just earlier that texts were exchanged, or Discord messages.
Right. Discord is an encrypted platform where you can have text messages with someone. Encrypted meaning you can keep them kind of secret, although obviously these have come out.
And these messages were between Tyler and allegedly his roommate. And Tyler was basically telling his roommate, go and pick up this rifle. It'll be in a towel. It'll be in the bushes over here. Now, that leads a lot of people to suspect that maybe the roommate was an accomplice or knew a bit more about it, before or after, because for Tyler to be messaging saying, go pick this up for me, it's like, if that was out of the blue message, that would be odd.
It's very incomplete. We don't know if this person who he's messaging was in on it, knew it was going to happen, was helping after the fact. We're not even entirely certain that the text message happened afterwards. We're reading sort of past tense language and participles, and everyone's trying to piece this together. It does look like maybe spur of the moment trying to ditch the weapon, but it could have also been part of a plan that had been concocted beforehand, and that's how the drop point was something that had been previously discussed. We just don't know. This is the start of this investigation, though. And this is the starting point, and where they're going to try to piece together these movements you see on video, the placement of the weapon. The other thing about the weapon is, and this came out yesterday, it was a bolt-action rifle, which makes you think of an assassin's weapon. Lee Harvey Oswald, famously, this was a bolt action. You shoot from long distance, you can kill somebody. It's also a hunting weapon, and Utah is a place where hunting is quite common. So this will all have to be developed. This is a very difficult shot to execute from that distance.
So he must have. The shooter definitely had a lot of training. It only
took
one shot as well. Now, there were other bullets still in the chamber or on the ground, and just like in the Luigi Mangione case, you can tell a lot about someone's motivations by what they inscribe on the bullets.
Yeah, we got to go through the bullet casings. This is obviously massive, right? Because Luigi did this. I forget what was said on the United Healthcare bullets, but
Defend, delay.
it was a reference to a book about the insurance system being, sort of deny, defend, how insurance companies sort of screw people out of coverage, and that was what angered him. So people related that and looked at the manifesto. For Tyler Robinson, they're finding these casings that they say he inscribed a couple things. 3 things in particular. One was sort of a throwaway indication that he is sort of just a young person, maybe for laughs on the internet. He said, if you read this, you're gay. And that's sort of internet talk for just, how would you describe it, Charlie? You're very into that internet culture.
It's just irreverent. It does just, speak. If they had found that casing before they'd found the guy, I think he'd give you a profile of it. It's got to be a young man, right?
Yes, it's irreverent. This is not something a 45-year-old man would write on a bullet casing. So this is a young person.
He lives online, and also we see images of this guy at Tyler at Halloween.
Yes.
And at Halloween one year, he went as the Groiper, which is a Pepe, a style of Pepe the Frog that's big in internet.
But riding on Trump's shoulders, correct?
That's a different Halloween
different
costume.
Halloween. Okay.
That's a different. Well, I was going to get to that as well, but I just think there's evidence. This guy was like a very serially online type guy, and so obviously then Charlie Kirk is one of the biggest online influencers there is.
That's right. Made his whole reputation going to campuses and debating college students. This kid is around college age. He's 22 years old. That's when you graduate from college. So he's very much in that milieu. Just to quickly, originally when they apprehended an older man, remember that? And they quickly dismissed him from custody, and that turned out to be a hoax. But clearly, if these messages, that wouldn't come from a man who's in his 50s or 60s.
What were the other messages?
The other 2 messages are very interesting. One was Bella Ciao, and that is a Nazi resistance group in Italy around the time of World War II. Okay, so this is something that someone would inscribe if they are anti-fascist. If they are trying to resist the Nazis, the fascist sort of onslaught on Europe, you would sort of reference that in a couple ways. Bella Ciao is one. The Warsaw Ghetto is another reference point that people often point to because they resisted the Nazis. This was Jews put in a small city, and they resisted and they fought.
It's a song, is it?
No, it's not a. Well, I think there are songs around it, but it's a reference to that group. It's
about freedom and liberation.
It's about freedom from fascism.
Okay.
So this now paints him, or the person who inscribed this, if it's Tyler, in fact, as anti-fascist. The other one is very direct and very haunting. It said, "Hey, fascist, catch," on the bullet casing. It's unclear if this was the casing of the bullet that was fired, right? Because we all heard one shot, and what killed Charlie Kirk was one shot. This would be a dark reference to catch this if I shoot it at you. So that could have been the kill bullet. We don't know all of those facts, but that is very dark.
Now, I want to talk about the politics of it all. In particular, there is evidence that Tyler had a family dinner when Charlie Kirk was about to come to town, and Tyler was talking about Charlie Kirk coming to town.
Yeah, there was apparently a family dinner where they mentioned, hey, Charlie Kirk's coming to UVU for a speech, and the family members say that Tyler was full of hate. That's the way they described it. And at this point, he had been sort of radicalized. This is maybe shortly before the event. It's unclear exactly how long before, but that it was upsetting to see how angry he was towards Charlie Kirk specifically. Now, this could cut towards a specific grievance with Charlie Kirk himself. Maybe something Charlie said on the internet, he lived so online, really rankled him. Or, and this is my thought, it is speculation, is that Charlie Kirk just represents as an avatar of a certain type of right-wing punditry and thinking out there. There are others. There's Ben Shapiro. There's a whole handful of Michael Knowles, people like that. But Charlie Kirk was so accessible, and he was just the version of this that this person who's obviously disturbed and wants to perpetrate a crime like this saw this as an opportunity because he's on a campus. He doesn't have much security detail. There was a high point to a low point. And he perpetrated this not specifically to kill Charlie Kirk, but to send a political message about this type of right-wing sort of talking.
Right. But interestingly, on like voter registration and that sort of stuff, his parents are registered Republicans, but Tyler is unaffiliated. And I know that doesn't mean that you one way or the other necessarily, but it shows that he didn't even vote in the last election.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that him being unaffiliated, not registered Democrat or Republican, because there's been a lot of ugly rhetoric
Yeah.
in the aftermath that he must have been killed by a radical leftist. Antifa is violent, and they're the ones who perpetrated this crime, and that's why you're hearing all these calls for reprisal. We got to get back at them, and that's why political violence is so awful, because it can often spiral out of control. I don't know what to read of his unaffiliated status. It is genuinely like you can be unaffiliated and still have hardcore left views. You can be unaffiliated and have hardcore right. Not everyone registers. There's a lot of reasons that someone may not register to vote but still hold hard political opinions.
But I want to be careful about this. But it also says that his voting status wasn't active.
Yeah.
Which means that he hasn't voted in the last elections. I just would have thought. It's interesting to me that someone who is this radical, this politically engaged, this radical, didn't even vote against something that Charlie Kirk represents.
That's right. Look, it's one type of political engagement. Going to the voting booth and casting a vote is one type of political engagement. It's extremely important. It's what makes democracy work. But some people just like to argue their positions, and they have a nihilistic view of, I'm not going to go to the voting booth because my vote doesn't matter. My vote is one vote in a sea of millions. It's a waste of my time. There's a lot of this kind of thought where you're still very politically engaged and you hate one side or the other, but it's a waste of time to you. So you'd rather put your efforts elsewhere. You don't want to go stand in lines at a voting booth. I don't know. He does sound very politically engaged. The other thing about him is that he seems like he was a very smart kid in terms of intelligence. His mother had posted that he had a 4.0 GPA. There's a video of him saying he got a $32,000 scholarship, that he aced the ACTs, which is the other standardized test other than the SATs. This seems like someone who may have just snapped. It's not a stupid person, obviously, to perpetrate something like this, to plan it, to get the bullets casings, to go on the roof. It takes a level of planning and organization, but also a level of being seriously, seriously disturbed. And when those combine, you can have a tragedy like this.
And kind of just a bit like in the Luigi case, it seems
Luigi's very smart as well.
He's very smart
as
well.
Writes manifestos, but they're just wrong. They're directionally oriented in the wrong way. Yeah.
He went to a lot of trouble, not to be caught, and then kind of, told his dad. It just seems like they're so sophisticated, planning. Then I messaged my mate saying, hey, could you go pick up the gun for me? It's like, what?
I don't know how to reconcile all of that. It's possible that he's just young and dumb or cocky. A lot of times these things fall apart in the execution of the cover up or the escape. Luigi obviously perpetrated this open in the city. He perpetrated this at a live event at the university, and they're able to get away for a period of time. But when the entirety of the surveillance apparatus of the United States starts looking for you, I don't care how good you are. That's a very tough world to live in. You can change your appearance. You can, put on disguises, but it's hard. And Luigi went to another state. He was found in Altoona. Remember, he was found in McDonald's. People are looking for you. It's almost impossible. That's why a lot of them maybe sort of kill themselves on sight. They want to make the message and then they put the bullet through their head. If you try to escape, it's hard to pull it off. And that could be that. It could not be stupidity. It could be just everyone's looking at your discords. I mean, you don't think through all of the permutations of how it's going to fall apart. And it's very, very hard to pull off a crime that is this public and has heightened. And Donald Trump has his full FBI looking into it.
Yeah. Look, I mean, after all this, I'm scared.
It's extremely scary. It's frightening times in this country.
It's been frightening times for a little bit, but for it to rise to this level, and I know, there was an attempted assassination on Donald Trump last year. So that's pretty bad. That's really bad. And now we have a successful attempt of an assassination on one of the most popular and polarizing figures on the internet.
This guy was in the White House. He was extremely close to the administration. They credited him with mobilizing the youth movement that is a huge part of MAGA. I mean, this is part of the Joe Rogans and the Theo Vons are the platforms, but he was the grassroots guy, right? That sort of made this more than just old aggrieved people about immigrants. This is a youth movement. This is Trump has a lot of young fans, and he was a big part of mobilizing that force. Very close with J.D. Vance, who is the vice president of the United States and was formerly a Trump detractor. There's a lot of articles about him convincing J.D. Vance in a way to follow Trump, and this was the way of the Republican Party, and this is the direction because they both were critical before.
Did you see?
He's a very big deal.
Did you see JD Vance walking beside the coffin yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, clearly
He was bringing the body back. I mean, this was a guy, this is not a nobody. This is not an internet sort of live streamer. He was very, very politically connected. This is political violence. There's no real argument that it's not. It may have been a personal vendetta in some sense, but Charlie Kirk was very political, and that's the way the incident's being read. And you're right. It makes it very scary in the country because it leads to a cycle of violence. It's hard to get out of it. In the 60s, Harvey always talks about, you had a spate of these because they just keep happening. Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy were being assassinated.
People want payback. People want to get the other side back. And I just think...
It's very troubling.
You know, the antithesis of democracy is political violence because you can either try to solve your differences through conversation or through violence. And if you try to do it through violence, if there are two sides in a country that are unable to even conceive each other's point of view, think that the other's way is a threat to their way of life, then it just like, I don't know as a country how America will get itself out. No matter what side you're on, I think, you know, you should be scared because this could be tit for tat. And if politicians like putting fuel on the fire and it was their fault, they're declaring war, then I think that the us versus them isn't going to go well. Let me just say, though, that the Utah's governor, Spencer Cox, who's a Republican, I think he has been moving.
He's striking the right tone.
The way that he has spoken, the way he spoke, you know, kind of every day since, including this morning, the presser. He just knows the right tone to take about, he is trying to like, okay, guys, we need to calm it down. Yes, this is absolutely horrible, but you know what's more horrible? And he's a Republican.
It's very important that he is because he's calming things down from their perspective as well.
I just think every major political figure, either it be like in office, formally in office, or just online political commentator, everyone's got to be worried who makes their living in politics.
I agree. I'll say one last thing. This is the time when you need true, steady leadership. I agree with you. Spencer Cox has been doing an amazing job at striking the right tone, which is very, very difficult. There's a lot of anger and strong emotions when these things happen in such a gory and public way that you can see it on the internet, and you need that tone to get the country back on track and not have it spiral into more and more violence. What makes me very nervous at this point in time is that people speak so casually. There's memes of people, you know, sort of implicitly calling for people to shoot at the president and so forth because they feel so strongly and they feel helpless that any convincing will work, that we will be able to debate our way out of this and have ideas rise to the surface. And so they just devolve. And when, you know, people who are somewhat disturbed get a hold of this, it seems like a casual sort of thing to them. That this is a solution for things. It is not. It's very, very ugly. It leads to an ugly place. And we're now in the middle of it. We're in the middle of like a very ugly episode of this. And I really hope leadership steps up and calms things down. I've seen Bernie Sanders post videos. I've seen Spencer Cox speak about this. And they're all trying to speak movingly and in a very measured way. And I hope we get there.
I hope so too, man. Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, this is, obviously not a fun episode. This is usually a very lighthearted podcast, but it's not the time for it now.
No, it's really not. But appreciate you joining me and have a good weekend.
All right.
Cheers, everyone, for listening. See you later.